If you have ever visited the Tower of Pisa, then you must have taken an incredibly creative photo of yourself pretending to be leaning against it or trying to save yourself from getting squashed by the tower. Everybody has. It's just something you have to do if you're there. But many don't know the history of Pisa or why it's leaning at all. Is it actually going to fall? Is it dangerous? There are an endless amount of questions to be asked about this iconic building, and we will provide all the answers for you today. So, keep on watching this video to find out more. But before we unveil the mysteries behind the Leaning Tower of Pisa, let's go through some history. The 55.86 meter high Leaning Tower of Pisa, or more commonly known as simply Tower of Pisa, which in Italian is Torre di Pisa, is located in the city of Pisa and is built using solid stone. Before it became known as the slanted building, it was originally planned to be a simple, elegant, and beautiful bell tower that would finalize the landmark in Pisa, which consisted of the enlarged cathedral Campo dei Miracoli and the added dome behind it called Duomo di Pisa. These two were a perfect representation of Romanesque architecture, but for the final touch, they wanted to add a new bell tower. But it wasn't as easy as they thought, because even though they had hired some of the best medieval time architects who were quite knowledgeable, they didn't have a great understanding of the soil, the ground they were going to be built on. Before we start, make sure to hit the subscribe button for more videos like this one. And now, let's start. But why? Why is it leaning? But why? Why is it leaning? It's all about the construction, which took up to 200 years. You would think that's more than enough time to make sure the tower was standing up straight, right? But apparently, not enough. Pisa took 3 separate stages to finalize. The first part occurred in 1172. When they purchased material and started working on laying the foundation. Heads up, this is where it all went wrong, but more on that later. It is also quite funny and ironic how Pisa in ancient Greek means marshy land, so muddy and soft soil, which is exactly what the Pisa Tower is built on. The Pisa Tower was laid in Pisa that didn't give its foundation, which was only 3 meters long, enough stability to hold a 50-meter building. Is a 3-meter foundation enough for a 14,500-ton building? I don't think so. This was all unveiled very soon in the process. Just as they started to lay the second floor, the tower started to tilt. Well, did they do something about it? The answer to that is they didn't want to, but luckily they had to stop due to the battles happening around the city. This allowed the foundation to stiffen in the soil, which was better than nothing. If not for the abrupt pause, the tower probably would not have made it to the 21st century. Years later, the project was given to Giovanni Pisano's son, Guido Speziale, who decided to build the remaining floors in a slightly unorthodox way. He constructed one side of the walls shorter than the opposite side to try and prevent the tower from actually falling over, but all this did was make the tower look curved as it is today. Then another battle started and the construction was temporarily cancelled again. And then in 1372, it was the third and final phase when the final 7 floors and bells were added. They wanted Pisa to be campanile, meaning it would have 7 bells at the top, all of which would be in the major scale to produce beautiful sounds across the warm city of Pisa. Make sure to stick around to find out more about the bells very soon. The tower today has a 4-degree tilt, but it wasn't always like this. It was said that the tower was guaranteed to fall over at a 5.44-degree angle, but in the 1990s, the slant had increased to a total of 5.5 degrees, which forced the government of Italy to close off the visiting area from the public. There were multiple attempts to fix the tower, They removed the bells to make it lighter, they evacuated inhabitants around it, they even put temporary counterweights at the foot of Pisa, but nothing worked. The Italian dictator Mussolini even suggested digging deep holes in the foundation and filling it up with cement in 1934, which was one of the most brutal interventions of all. Probably because he despised the tower and the fact it wasn't perfect made him feel ashamed as a ruler. But little did he know, it would become one of the greatest and most unique architectural landmarks in history. Mussolini's behavior is funny also because in the course of World War II, the Germans thought Italians would most definitely be utilizing the tower as a lookout. They weren't, but even if they were, they decided not to destroy it. Why? Because that's how mesmerized and impressed they were by it. It is quite unbelievably how in the world of developed technology, it's impossible to give this tower the chance to stand straight, but the Italian government has decided not to, in order to keep tourism high. According to some, if it were not tilted, it may have not become the famous landmark that it is today, and the UNESCO World Heritage Site would have never added it to their list in 1987. But things started to improve when the slanted angle was reduced to 4 degrees. By digging under the tower from the opposite side of the tilt, removing the solid and sand and relying on the law of the gravity, they managed to decrease the lean. And in 2001, it was reopened at a cost of 200 million Great British pounds. But before it was reduced, according to the law of physics, it should have, by all means, fallen over. But it didn't. Is it a miracle? Well, it's definitely a miracle that it has survived multiple strong earthquakes that hit the area ever since the 12th century. But is it guaranteed it won't fall on me as I get my pictures for Instagram? After a lot of work of straightening the foundation, in 2008, they declared that the Pisa Tower would be safe for the following 200 years, giving us more than enough time to ensure those fancy photos. However, it is known that it does sink in the ground about 1 millimeter annually. Who is to blame? You might be thinking, well, who is to blame for the poor construction? We're sorry to say we don't have an exact answer to that, as the topic of who was the architect of Pisa has always been an issue of discussion and disagreement. Many think that it was originally assigned to an Italian sculptor living in Pisa named Bonanno Pisano. Some disagree. However, after he passed away in the year of 1185, they discovered Pisano's name engraved at the bottom of the tower, which might suggest he did indeed start working on the construction site, whereas some think that the original architect was not in fact Bonanno Pisano but Diotisalvi. It is unfortunate that we don't have many facts to back this information up, so the original architect of the Leaning Pisa remains unknown, as annoying as it might be. The 7 bells of Pisa. As promised before, let's talk about the ringing bells you hear all across Pisa. In total, this tower has 8 floors, including a chamber for the 7 beautiful and heavy bells corresponding to 7 musical notes. They all have their names. La Terza is the smallest one, and Il Vespruccio follows as the second smallest with a total weight of 1,000 kilograms. The heaviest of them all is l'Assunta. The 4 other bells are Dal Pozzo, Il Crocifisso, San Ranieri, and La Pasquareccia. Would you have guessed that neither of these bells have rung in the past century? You probably would, as it was risky to sway 7 bells that amount to 10 metric tons in total. This would undoubtedly put the tower in danger. However, in the past couple of years, they have managed to change the ropes that held the bells to electromagnetic hammers, preventing the bells to sway whilst being rung. And here's a quick fun fact. The bell, going by the name of La Giustizia, which means justice in Italian, is the one that was used at executions of criminals. Therefore the name justice. Today, however, it rings on Easter Day every year. Maybe Mussolini felt ashamed and hated Pisa, but the iconic Leaning Tower inspired many other architects. Even back in the 14th, 15th centuries, the Germans built the Leaning Tower of Zürchhausen with a 5.19-degree tilt and the Bad Frankenhausen, which was also located in Germany. However, years later, Guinness World Records confirmed that the Abu Dhabi Capital Gate deserved the title of the world's furthest leaning man-made tower, as it is nearly 5 times as tilted as Pisa. However, the concept of a leaning tower was a decision made from the very beginning, making it less magical and impressive than Pisa. If we were to imagine a world where the Pisa Tower was standing up straight, it would still deserve the attention it gets today. Pisa is more than just a slanted building. The exquisite design and architecture is usually forgotten when talking about it, like the flower pendant details or animals and monsters depicted on the outer walls. Even the floor tiles around the base are an example of beauty, as well as base wall columns and more details on the top levels. You can visit this gorgeous landmark at any time. It is also possible to climb up the spiral stairs. Beware, there are 300 steps, which won't make it too long, but you will need some time to recover from the vertigo. It will cost you approximately 17 euros to enjoy this wonder. We also recommend taking some time to explore the beautiful city of Pisa, or if you have a strict schedule, maybe pop into the cathedral and dome to admire the golden murals and elegant interior. The Pisa Tower has been cared for by the best architects around the world for nearly 10 centuries. It has been a topic of great misunderstanding and, quite frankly, a matter of miracle. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to let us know what your go-to pose would be when visiting the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Thank you for watching.